Today, I have the pleasure to be with Thomas KOLSTER. Thomas is Danish. He's the founder and creative director of Good Advertising Agency. And as a consultant, he has been working with several international brands and companies such as Body Shop, Unilever, Procter and Gamble, Carlsberg, Danone, among others. He's a professional speaker. When I came across him, I thought it was interesting because most of his lectures are about the power of communication as a driver of sustainable change. Uh, and I think it's very interesting. Well, we have been talking about sustainability for a long time, but finally, perhaps I think it's a moment where people started real uh, to think that how important it is, how important for the brands to be close to people, how important to brands not to speak unilaterally to people, how to engage, and so on and so forth. So, okay, just to begin and to know a little better your work and yourself. Can you tell us on which good advertising consists of?
Yeah, so thank you so much for this opportunity, Carlos, at Marketing Mania. For me, good advertising I came from an advertising background, maybe that's good to say. So I came from the agency side as a copywriter, and about, I guess it was 12 years ago,
Mhm.
working in the agency business. And we were hosting in Copenhagen, we were hosting the climate summit. We had Tony Blair, we had Barack Obama in town. And I had high expectations, as I'm sure a lot of us had, to our elected government leaders to do something about the climate emergency. But as it came out, nothing really came out of that summit. And so that was my realization that what if I could use my skill sets? What if some of the world's biggest brands like Coca-Cola that touch billions of people's lives on a daily basis could use some of that to create change? And that was in fact what kind of sparked the first book, Good Advertising. And it's so interesting that looking back at the work, this was out more than 10 years ago, and there wasn't that many examples. I mean, there was Body Shop, there was Ben and Jerry's, Volkswagen had started with a little bit of their climate commitments, but it's tough to find work. So basically, the idea about good advertising, which is saying, what if, because at this stage it was still early stage, what if brands could stand for something bigger than just selling products, and what if that could be the thing that ultimately would nourish and heal this quite fractured relationship between people and brands.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think that finally companies started to, apart from the pressure, so to speak, of social pressure around the subject and everything, I think that brands started to understand that even if they are environmental linked, if they think that sustainability is important, there can also be have a business case on it because
Yeah.
it's not only to give money around, but away, so to speak, but they can do their job and have social performance that is in line with I would say, I generally say that the people live to be happy. So governments,
Yeah.
companies should at least, perhaps it's too utopic, but all of us should work on a way to increase the global happiness of people. But apart from this, I
No,
think
I
that
do, I do, I do agree with that, and I think for sure one of the key theses in the first book was very much, in fact, that when brands embrace purpose,
Mhm.
when you start seeing sustainability as a business opportunity, lots of exciting things happen. And obviously we can see that proven much more today, 10 years later. But I very much agree about the happiness because that kind of tie a little bit into some of my latest work and my latest book for sure.
Yeah. And can you give an example of one or two brands that, from your perspective, have really follow a purpose and really have a sustainability policy or a strategy?
Yeah, so basically, and to kind of create a segue, because for 10 years or so, I did advocate really for, the business case and purpose, and I've been a staunch believer in it. And obviously, we've seen lots of the classical examples, whether it's Unilever and their business case, or whether it's some of the challenger brands that we're seeing today, such as Oatly. We do see how they have managed to use purpose and some sustainability conversations as a driver of growth. But having been in this movement for quite some time, I noticed one exciting development, a challenge, in fact, and it maybe comes a little bit down to what you talk about happiness, because I thought, wait, purpose is about change. Purpose is about brands wanting to have a meaningful relationship with people. So I started asking myself, are this change happening fast enough? And what brands have actually truly created positive change in my life? And I realized the list was extremely short. And when there's so many brands out there, all claiming to have a higher purpose today, which I should be happy about, I do see a wear out effect.
Yeah.
I do see that purpose sometimes end up being what I call a hero trap. And that's why I had to kind of write the second book, where I said there's a danger in this environment in pitching yourself as the hero instead, because you will fail. And we've seen that a number of times.
Yeah.
And we see rising skepticism towards corporate efforts. We see younger generations disabandoning the belief in big organizations and rather believing that they're the agents of change. So I think we're at an interesting time where we need to take a new look at purpose and look at leadership in a new, refreshed way.
Yeah. Well, I believe that mostly the new generations are less and less loyal to brands. Of course, there are some reasons for that. There are some reasons, but notwithstanding, some brands have been spending a lot of money trying to develop loyalty schemes. But I believe that most of them have been performing wrongly, because I saw a report some weeks ago, a global report, I think from Bain and Company, and they came to the conclusion that they asked CMOs and CEOs of companies around the world what was the behavior of their brands towards experiences. And so 80% of them said they created excellent experience to their customers. But at the same time, the same report asked their customers, and only 8% of them said they have good experiences with their brand. So I think there is a gap here between what marketers at least think or express with their relations to the customers, and what really their customers think about the brand. So that's perhaps, I don't know, one of the reasons why they are less and less loyal. People are less and less loyal to brands. Can you comment, Ron?
I do absolutely agree. I do think this is a development that we've seen over time. We've seen skepticism. And I think it makes sense. I mean, look at it. I mean, I think purpose is maybe even making this worse, because in some instances, if you're just out there and you're just saying, I'm selling a low-priced ice cream, buy it. That's fine. But take Ben and Jerry's as an example. So I obviously had Ben and Jerry's as a key example in my first book. But if you listen to Ben and Jerry, they talk about, we want to sell the best possible ice cream in the nicest possible way. Mm-hmm. But in fact, does that really hold true today? I mean, just where I live in Copenhagen, I have 4 or 5 ice cream makers They do amazing ice cream. It's organic. I can talk to them. I can suggest a taste. And in that sense, Ben & Jerry's seem like a sort of industrialized, bland product. So of course, I think young people say, "Hey, wait, hey, wait a moment. We can see through this." And I think the thing I describe in my book is really this shift in power. That brands used to have tons of power because they owned the distribution. I was only exposed to those brands in the supermarket. When I went down there, I didn't have a choice. If I wanted a premium ice cream, it was Ben & Jerry's. Today, I mean, we've seen it during pandemic, right? Look at the rise of e-commerce, and I think in some aspects that's a massive challenge to a lot of the big brands. I mean, we've seen Gillette from P&G, a very famous brand, how they have been challenged at the very core by faster moving challenger brands. It's been much better at connecting with consumers. So I think what I encourage brands to do is really trying to understand how do you as a brand really have a meaningful connection with people? And I think that's the key question that brands need to answer. And then secondly, how do you then make sure that you are people and life-centric? That brands can become a vehicle for my dreams, my aspirations. I want to have a say because it's an Instagram generation, right? I'm used to dealing with brands that if I see something on Instagram, I write them and I'm like, I don't like the black cap. Can you give me? And they write back and they're like, yeah, Thomas, we can do that. Big brands are not ready for that just yet.
Yeah, some 2 months ago, I spoke with an EVP of Unilever, and his opinion was that large brands have some difficulty in being so flexible and so agile as small brands. That's why I think in the edge they can innovate at the edge, but if it's a total disruptive thing, they can't do it because they have a so heavy structure that they can't face. So what they do, they buy as P&G or Unilever. Unilever bought the Dollar Shave Company. I think Unilever bought it because it's easier for them to buy them because it's very difficult for them to be agile because they have a large structure. And I think that's the same with the relationship with their customers because at the end of the day, there are a lot of silos. All of those big departments that multinationals have, it's very difficult to, at the end of the day, they're working towards who? The customer, or so to speak, towards themselves, trying to maximize their work, but the customer is at the end of the chain. So that's really difficult. They have to face and they have to challenge. Okay.
Well, I think you have some brands that have, and I do agree with the statement from Unilever. One of the guys introduced for my book was Mark Pritchard from Procter & Gamble, and he painted a picture that I really do agree with. He said, even though Procter & Gamble has been in the business for 180 years, they have some of the best scientists, some of the best research and development departments. People don't trust them. They rather trust an 18-year-old guy that makes soap out of his mom's basement. and it really kind of shows the disconnect. But I think some brands have been better at dealing with this. I think if you look at a brand like Nike, I think coming back to the meaningful role, I think they have a very clear role that they want to play in people's lives, pushing us towards athletic accomplishment. And I think they've been good at an early stage in understanding that you need to be adaptable. I mean, if you look at it today, Nike ID, which is this customized shoe program, was started many years back and has been successfully expanded across the globe.
Yeah.
If you go into the Soho store they have in New York, they do understand that people want to have a say. And how can Nike cater to young people who don't just want to buy bland one-off products at the cheapest price? they want to be respected as more than consumers. And I think it's at least one example of, I think, a company who's sort of on the right path to at least, responding to some of these quite difficult challenges.
Yeah, yeah. Well, nowadays we see that increasing number of people that are concerned with the future of the planet, with the sustainability, healthier life, and so healthier, sustainable consumption. But I think that at the end of the day, there is a gap between what people say and how people behave. Uh, how do you think the brands and advertising creativity can help us to reach a better future?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think unless we do understand what it takes to motivate people, we're not going to succeed. Unless we understand that motivation and shift. I mean, one report called the Good Life Report out of the US, it covers 7 markets, in fact, puts a number on this. So they say that 68% of people globally want to buy from purposeful companies, but only 29% follow through. So there's a gap of 39%. But I think in the book, The Hero Trap, I describe this kind of this dilemma, because we are humans. I think how often don't we say something we want to do? I mean, myself included, we do New Year's pledges, and just like 2 weeks into the New Year's pledge, it's, the beginning of bad old habits. The running shoes are still lying in the corridor. But I think this is a true opportunity for brands. It's an open door. It's a hand reach out for consumers, because I like to call them people. But people, because they say, we want to live healthier lives. We want to be more connected with our communities. We want to understand how we can live more sustainably. Brand XYZ, can you help me? And I think this is a real interesting opportunity, but that doesn't, the recipe there is not for brands to stand up and say, we believe in doing good for people and planet, or all this nonsense that we hear all the time, a better tomorrow or whatever, because that's not about change. I think because so many brands are trying to pitch themselves as the heroes in our lives, I think we need to ask a fundamentally different question as an organization, which is, who can you help people become? How can you help Thomas and Carlos on our change journey? How can you understand what is holding us back? And those brands, I think, are the ones that's going to be successful in the marketplace. And we actually did a study where we compared 4 purposeful commercials with what I call transformative commercials that look at you as the agent of change rather than brand as the agent of change. And those commercials were on average 29.4% better at motivating people. So I think we ought to look at that gap in a renewed light and truly understand what that takes, because not only is meaningful growth for brands depending on it, I think the legacy of brands are depending on it, but lastly, and probably even more importantly, if we don't shift consumer behaviors, if we don't shift our behaviors, we're all screwed. We only have this one planet, so we need to find the solutions, right?
Yeah. Speculating, I would say that happily in some few years, we'll be discussing what will be the differentiation among brands, coming or accepting that all the brands are sustainable, or are the brands have a purpose, a clear purpose? What will differentiate them? But okay, we are not yet on that phase. But well, you already mentioned once or twice. But can you tell us a bit of your last book, The Euro Trap?
Yeah, I think we touched on it, because I think what tends to happen is that I've been so passionate about purpose for so many years. So suddenly having to revise my beliefs in purpose was actually tough, to be honest. And the thing that sparked it was in fact, my own inability to create change in my own life. I thought, if I'm so bad at creating change in my own life, something must be wrong. And obviously the question I mentioned earlier was, in fact, what brands and organizations have actually truly helped me. So then I started to look into this space, and I thought, all this time we've been asking the wrong questions. And especially now, as every brand is claiming to be so purposeful and like Mandela and Gandhi and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So when they all talk about their values and how much they believe, how can I know who's authentic? So that's when the question came up, who can you help people become, where it's about transformative brands? Because I think the real delivery point is not a brand talking about how much they care or going on an action marathon. It's been so popular these days for all these brands doing their pledges and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't really give a lot for these pledges, because it's almost like they think that I don't have a choice. Why should I wait and sit around for brand to change in 2030? I'm shopping today. I'm not shopping in 2030. I'm shopping today. So for me, the book really portrays the shift from where good advertising stopped, where it was about the societal value, to talk about the transformational value. Because I'm not buying your values, I'm not buying those so-called actions, but I'm buying the difference you can make in my life. Yeah. And I think this is an interesting shift. If I can feel that a brand have helped me live more consciously or pushed me to be healthier, obviously they delivered, and I can feel it. And one of the examples I use in the book from my own life is a company called KOLSTER, and it's seasons in English. What they do, they deliver a box of farm fresh produce to my doorstep. But they don't work with purpose in the traditional sense, because they talk about earth connection, which is something I need to discover myself. And it comes with recipes, and they actually taught me how to cook rather good, I would say, plant-based food. So now I can cook vegan food, I can cook vegetarian food, and I'm the brand incredibly thankful. And so even though that today there are other competitors, I'm not as price sensitive, because I feel, hey, wait a moment, that brand actually took me from A to Z. And so I think that's going to be the ultimate focus points of companies and brands going forward. It's understanding how they can drive change in my life.
Okay. Can you give your thoughts on the future of marketing, let's say marketing, advertising, branding?
The future.
As I usually say, it's easy to talk about the future because we don't know. So
exactly, we don't know. No doubt about it. I mean, I've been in the purpose space for so many years now, and been a staunch believer in it. And I do see one clear development though, and when everybody now is talking about purpose, I do think that we are getting closer to a sort of post-purpose reality. I do see that sustainability is becoming a hygiene factor, that you have to be sustainable to be in the marketplace. And I do see that there's an extreme opportunity, and I think basically also led by a lot of tech companies. I do hope that what you touched upon as well around happiness, I do hope that we can come to a point where brands are merely vehicle for people's creativity and aspirations, where we can be in a sort of reciprocal relationship, where we can converse, where we can suggest to brands what we like, because basically at the end of the day, I think, for me at least, I think it's sort of about a human revolution, that the brands that help me live better lives are the ones that I want to have in my life. And it's like friends. Brands are no different than friends. And I think that's basic, but some friends are there for good times, some friends are there for reflection, some friends are there to help us when we are being let down, some friends are there to help us see a better Thomas or Carlos. And so I do think that to survive going forward as brands, I think they need to be clearly focused on the role they play in people's lives by asking who can you help people become question. Secondly, I think they need to open up the whole marketing mix for people to have a say, whether that is sometimes deciding what the product ought to cost, whether that is sometimes deciding what product they would love to have or help that brand build that product, or whether it's having distribution on my terms. I mean, look at some of the car rental companies today. We have one in Copenhagen. I pick up the car where I want it. I leave it where I want it. That's on my terms. So I really think that the brands that think that they're the heroes, the brands that think that they should do business on their terms, those are definitely the brands that are going to fail in the future and that we're not going to say. So I'm in a way, I'm really positive about the future, because I think it's about giving all of us a bigger say. It's finally about giving us the respect that we deserve and the choices that we deserve, because I think ultimately liberalism is about choices, right? And there's not much choice in going down to a supermarket. They define the choices for us. There's not much choice in going online, and the ones who pay the most are the ones that we are exposed to in the search results. So hopefully, I do think that and hope so that advertising will become more equal, will become more open, become more democratic, and become a hell of a lot more fun.
Okay, Thomas, it was really nice to talk to you. Thank you very much. All the best, and hopefully, well, we hope that brands follow a path of being each time more linked to people's worries and people concerns, and that's all the only way they can be the part of our lives, I believe. Okay, thank you very much, Thomas, again, and all the best.
Thank you, Carlos.